the Within Orb podcast. Come get Within Orb. Hello, my name is Jenn Zahrt, and welcome to Within Orb, a production of the Celestial Arts Education Library, a podcast bringing people together around the love of astrology, books. Join me as I interview people about the astrology books that changed their life and practice. You can support the podcast at withinorb.com. Welcome to another episode of Within Orb, and today we are heading over to Athens, Greece to visit with psychologist and astrologer Alejo López. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's so fun to finally meet you. You have got a lot of accolades, Faculty of Astrology's Diploma where you teach now, and you are also a graduate of the Sophia Centre for the Study of Cosmology and Culture with the master's degree in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology from the University of Wales, Trinity St. David, where you got a dissertation prize. So yes, I'm just really excited to pick your brain because I've got this burning curiosity to know how did you get into astrology and what are your favorite books? So let's just begin. What was your first astrology book?
So my first astrology book, I'm guessing it was probably Liz Greene's The Development of Personality, or maybe Dynamics of the Unconscious, but probably it was Liz Greene, because actually most people start buying Linda Woodman book on solar signs and these kind of things.
Yeah, Linda Goodman's Love Signs or Linda Goodman's Sun Sign books, yeah.
Yes. But my situation was that I actually started studying astrology without having much idea of what it was about. I was doing this course in Kabbalah, and I really liked an astrologer, the way she was speaking. So I asked her, I want to learn what you're saying. So she sent me to this school. So this was when I first saw what it was a natal chart. I didn't even know what a natal chart was. So I just signed up to the course and I jumped there. And it was, of course, Psychological Astrology. So my first book, I bought it from recommendations from those teachers. So that's how I got to the development of personality.
Through kind of a Kabbalah in a way. What were you doing with Kabbalah?
I was studying with a teacher in Argentina called Jenn Zahrt, and we would meet once a week. And 1 week it was kind of theoretical, and the other week was very practical, like meditation practice that they do and all of these kind of things. Also, I kind of fell into this group. It didn't really just kind of happen that, okay, I'm going to sign up here. And I ended up there. Yes.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay. So I know you know a lot about different astrology books, so this is probably going to be a tough one. But if you had to be sent away from Athens, Greece to a far, far away place, maybe Corsica, I don't know, somewhere close but far, what books would you take with you? You can take 3 books and the ephemeris.
It's a difficult question, but so I will confess I don't know much about traditional astrology. I mean, I know traditional astrology because I studied horary astrology, if we consider this traditional. But I've read the Ben Dykes book on world astrology, and he has many chapters on weather astrology.
Ah, okay, I see.
And I think if I'm living alone on an island, I would want to know what the weather is going to be like. So probably I would like to study this book in depth to know exactly how to predict the weather. So this is probably one of the books. So basically I'm focusing on books about techniques because I think what I'm going to be wanting to do on the island is to be able to apply astrology to my everyday life. So maybe I would also choose a book on aspects. So I'm thinking of Sue Tompkins, Aspects in Astrology. Mm-hmm. I will have a lot of time, so I will be able to reflect on my own chart. So I will be reading these aspects and maybe reflect on what's happening to me.
Yeah.
And then the other one I would choose is a book on midpoints. So probably Ebertin's combination of stellar influences. Again, with the idea of books that are very practical, that I can apply to my chart, to my transits, to what's happening in the island. And I think I would go for very practical astrology books instead of philosophical books. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So circling back to the Ben Dykes book, does that have various techniques about weather compiled together, or is it only one astrologer's take?
If I remember correctly, it's Al-Kindi. But the book also has something about Abu Mashar. So maybe there's also some techniques about Abu Mashar.
And then you'll have to work through it and you can see perhaps, become sort of an expert meteorologist. And if you ever get rescued, you could help other people understand weather patterns in other places.
The thing is, I think it's so interesting to apply astrology to these kind of things. But then, of course, nowadays, of course, I will use the forecast from the newspaper, right? So it's like I find it interesting, but at the same time, I'm lazy to study all of the rules. And yeah.
For sure. Well, and don't you think there might be also something a little bit like, just to reference like Geoffrey Cornelius's Moment of Astrology for a moment, because I feel like when you're tuned in to be like, oh, there's an ingress. Oh, look, the weather's rosy because this whatever planet just went into Pisces. And it's like, is that always the case though? Like, is it just maybe more of a divinatory like matching of the energy that we're paying attention, and it just so happens that there's that, I don't know, maybe it would be like a confirmation bias or like some sort of resonant like universal thing speaking to the human.
Okay, yeah, but it could be stepping into this divinatory thing. It could be your experience of the weather. So maybe you're thinking, this planet has just changed signs, and you're thinking about that, and you experience the weather, and you feel like, it matches what I'm thinking about. And you're picking up that entrance because you could be picking, there's this aspect in the sky or there's this other thing.
Right.
And so I do think there is a resonance, but maybe it doesn't apply to everyone. It applies to you and what you are engaging with.
I love that. Yeah. That's kind of like, I'm paying attention, so I'll see it this way. And everybody else is like, what are you talking about, Rosie? Today's just another gray day. Like, because it's like...
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any other things in the astrology of the world besides weather that would pique your curiosity while you're on this island?
Yeah. I bought it especially because I wanted to learn mundane astrology. So it also goes very deep into different techniques on how to apply mundane astrology, like ingresses charts and all of these things. And this is why I actually bought it, especially because of that. I think it was probably in the period that I was obsessed with the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, and I wanted to learn more about it, and I think that's when I bought this book.
Awesome. Yeah, one of my favorite conversations around that, I actually forget who the astrologer is, but it might have been MashaAllah, could have been Abu Mashar, talking about how you can predict the next prophet figure from the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, and then the people born around that time and where that conjunction falls in their chart, and it's like, you're the prophet. No, you're the prophet. Like you can kind of see the major religious figures merging.
Yeah, I think it's Mashallah.
Okay, yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong. I'm not so.
I know. I kind of with those two names, I feel it's like dyslexia. Like, is it Mashallah or Abu Mashar?
Yeah, no.
But the reason why I was curious about that was the Martin Luther and the Reformation and all of the astrological propaganda taking place around that time. So
wow.
Yeah, and then it's like, here we go. We have another great mutation. And, we should pay attention to like, where does it fall in the charts of people born around 2020? Who are we going to need to pay attention to?
Yeah. And also, if you know people, okay, one thing is when it changes element, of course, that's more important, right?
Yeah.
But also it's interesting to see people who are born with this conjunction, even if it wasn't the moment in which changes element, because it's a strange conjunction, it really, Jupiter-Saturn. And the other thing I was thinking is I once read, but again, I don't remember where, that when they were doing this Jupiter-Saturn, they were not really using the motion of the planets as we use it today. We use like the real conjunction of Jupiter-Saturn, but they were using the mean motion. I think Ben Dykes speaks about this in Skyscript, I remember now. They were using the mean motion of Jupiter and Saturn to calculate these conjunctions. Because if we do it, the way we do it, like we take the ephemeris where Jupiter is, where Saturn is, and we check when they're together. So what happens is that we have this series of conjunctions in the same element. And usually before the last conjunction in that element, the previous one is in the element that's going to come afterwards, right? After the change.
Yeah.
If we take the mean conjunctions, this doesn't happen.
Wow.
You have all of the conjunctions in one element, and then it changes to the next element.
But what do we gain when we apply this hyper-technical accuracy to it? Is there something to be gained from understanding that, like in 1981, the conjunction took place in early Libra, in 2000 it took place in Taurus, in 2020 it took place in early Aquarius? Like, doesn't that mean something?
I mean, if we count it in the way in this other way, with the mean conjunctions, I think, if I remember correctly, it changes in 2000.
Wow.
And to me, the change of element to air element, I see it more like I see this, everything we're living today. I think it started in 2000. Remember in 2000, we had this idea that the computers would crash because they couldn't count up to more than 99.
I know. Y2K.
I think,
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a documentary about that now. It's very good to see the documentary and just remember how chaotic those times were.
Yeah.
The Y2K.
And this happened 25 years ago. Can you believe
don't
it?
remind me. Oh my goodness.
25 years ago. Yeah. I was thinking about this morning. I was like, what? 25 years ago, we were afraid the computers would collapse, and now we have robots doing things for us. It's
right?
Like...
Self-driving cars in San Francisco. But also in 2001, there was the air attack at 9/11, right? So, I mean, this air was there, in Saturn-Pluto opposition in Gemini and Sagittarius. So, yeah, but I mean, if you're on this deserted island, you'll be a little bit insulated from these world political events. That might be a good thing,
Yeah.
Protected from the trade wars.
Yes.
Okay, so here, let's just move on to Sue Tompkins and aspects in astrology. Is there anything in there about minor aspects?
I think there is, yes. Basically, she first lists all of the aspects and their meanings, like different types of aspects, and for sure you have minor aspects there. And then she goes through each combination of planets, but she doesn't tell you Sun square Saturn, Sun sextile. She says Sun Saturn.
Oh, okay.
I could have chosen maybe Rob Hand's book on aspect is more
prescriptive.
Book of Transits. I'm thinking, maybe this would have been more useful. I know that I'm thinking so.
Maybe. I heard he's updating that now, which is exciting. I hope that he does update that,
wow. Yes.
Because when he wrote that was pre-Rob's traditional engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I would change. Let's take Sue Tompkins out. I'll put Rob
Sue.
Hand's.
She's getting kicked off the island. Oh my God. That's how we could do this show next, is that you have like a survivor. Like, you've got these books, but who are you going to like whittle it down to? Wow. Okay. And then the midpoint books, I love that you picked this, especially when you're talking about practicality, because I feel like if we go back to the lineage just before Ebertin and we look at the Hamburg School founder, Alfred Witte, he was on the front in the Eastern Front in the border between Germany and Russia in World War I. And he was trying to make sense of how these things happening in front of him could be happening so quickly if the transit moon was the only thing really marking the tempo by planetary placement, right? And then obviously the ascendant would change 2 to 6 minutes depending on the obliquity of the ecliptic. And he's going, there's got to be something else here. So he reaches back to ancient astrology and fishes midpoints back out. And when you do that, everything is super quick. So you'd be able to get just the beat, like, oh, there's a bird flying. Here's the midpoint Y. Oh, look, there's this, And so it's like you just get like really accelerated information.
Yes. And I think midpoints I do think they're amazing. I think because I come from the Southern Hemisphere, I have two basic, I don't have them so much anymore, but I used to have two very kind of disturbing questions. One was if we can use the same zodiac or not, because the seasons are reversed, not reversed, opposite or reversed, whatever. And the other one was about the houses, because I get frustrated with this thing that when you go too far north or too far south, the houses, they
get distorted.
Yeah, too much.
Yeah.
And, I don't like the idea that I just use equal house or whole sun system because it works everywhere. I don't think it's like an enough answer. So I was like with these two questions. And when I discovered midpoints, I said, this is the key. We don't need to use signs or houses anymore. All that. And I feel like it goes back to the planets, which are what matters in astrology. Astrology is about light, and the planets are the one who are casting. Okay, it's not, it's not their own light, but they're casting light towards us. So that's why I love midpoints. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And you're onto something there. I think that if you are operating fully in a midpoint system and you lean into the way those arc distances convey information, I think you can absolutely get by without any houses or signs. It's a very rooted way of looking at it that goes for it's like a skipping from Babylon to Kepler to here. In a way.
Yeah. And also, I think it's true when you have transits that are slow, And some astrologers use sometimes a 3-degree orb for planets. So maybe you have a Pluto transit that lasts for 5 years. And like, come on, it has to be a little bit more clear. It should be a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
And I think midpoints help a lot to understand this.
Imagine stepping into a room of 5,000 astrology books, turning a corner and stepping into a room of 2,000 more. The Celestial Arts Education Library is every astrologer's dream, and it can be yours. I invite you to come support CAELi before you can visit physically. Your support will mean the creation of 52 new episodes of Within Orb next year, 4 issues of the CAELi Review, our inaugural journal, and countless book talks, events, classes for our community. Visit our website, www.caeli.institute/support, to select your level of care. Please help support CAELi into the future, our future, so that we may study the future together. Thank you for listening. Please enjoy the rest of the show. So how would you help someone, because you're also a psychologist, so how would you help somebody in your care who is having a quote-unquote 5-year Pluto transit? Like, what would you be doing with your astrology with midpoints to help them make a little more sense of the long time of that?
Okay, so first I would say there's nothing we need to do. We just have to embrace this moment. This is the first thing I would say. Okay. It's not like we need to fix what's happening. Let's just try to navigate what's happening. So this is not specifically about midpoints really, but I use a lot an image that I learned from Liz Hathaway, another astrologer, that she said a transit is like a hierophany. A god is visiting your house. So with my patients, I would work a lot on Pluto and what Pluto means for them. In this case, that's Pluto, right? What Pluto means for them, how Pluto has been manifested in their lives. And I work a lot with visualizations and art. I ask them to paint. You have to paint.
Make this mandala or I will not see you anymore.
Exactly. I was reading this, there is this biography about this. I'm very bad with names. I'm sorry.
No worries.
There is this new book, not new, maybe last year. One of the patients of Freud published like how it was to have therapy with Freud. And it seems that Freud was a bit like that. He was like, okay, I don't remember. And Freud was like, yes, you remember. Make an effort. He was
no.
Yeah, I'm not like that. No, but I ask them to draw sometimes and paint. So I would try to engage them with all of these transits in a symbolic way. So then maybe we would go through all of the midpoints and, I would try to engage it not in a rational way, but kind of see what emotions provokes. Sometimes I ask them to do like somatic work. So I just ask them to stay and see what happens in their body. If they want to move their body, and sometimes painting. I would say, especially with these long lasting transits, we need to engage with them symbolically. And also the other thing I do is to invite this god, right? So if it's Pluto, okay, let's put in your home things that Pluto might like. So
a lot of money.
Welcome.
Or plumbing,
yeah,
right? New plumbing. Fix that sink.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, no, sorry, I cut you off. What Pluto items would you have them put in there?
No, but it could work. Anything.
Okay.
Anything that is Plutonian. Yes, this could work. I don't know. I always ask them to, because I tell them, okay, I can give you the list of astrological kind of things, but it's more important for them to draw from their own experience of Pluto. So maybe they had a situation in which they felt very, very powerful. And if they remember, I don't know, I was wearing something orange, let's say, which is very solar. I was wearing something orange. Even it doesn't sound Plutonian. If they relate this with Pluto, it's their symbol. So I say, yes, let's bring orange stuff in your home because it reminds, this is your connection to Pluto. I think it's very like a personal connection. Yes.
Very cool. Awesome. And yeah, if you apply astrology to their 5-year thing, do midpoints come into that to like kind of hone in of, here's something that's a little more acute. So let's spend more time with the art or the visuals.
Sometimes it depends on the client. Like some people, on the patient client, some people are very into astrology and they will ask me more astrological evidence for what I'm doing. And sometimes I usually have the chart on my left because I have 2 screens. But sometimes I just go with them. And then maybe once in a while I check the transits and I see the midpoints that are being picked up. So sometimes it's more like in retrospect, I'm like, wow. And they had this dream.
Oh, wow. That seems like it's a nascent book. The things you're noticing with the dreams and midpoints.
I don't
Just
know.
going to plant that there.
Yes, to write a book, I don't know yet. Yeah.
No. Just keep gathering, and see. Do you have any midpoints that you love?
Well, I love of course, the sun-moon midpoint. I must say I don't love so much the ascendant midheaven midpoint.
Why?
Because I like the idea of planets, and the ascendant and the midheaven are not planets. So
there we go.
I think it's, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I sometimes I use a lot the Mars-Venus midpoint, especially when people because when they come for a consultation, I ask them what they want to work. And if there's about relationships, I usually look at the Venus-Mars midpoint. And I also like midpoints like Saturn-Pluto, for instance. This is one of my favorites, Saturn-Pluto.
So do you like the people born in 1982 who have it natally? As a conjunction?
Here's one of them.
Hi, reporting for duty.
Yes. I guess I do. And I like myself.
Yeah, no, I think 2020 was quite a trip with that recurrence transit, right? Having the Saturn Pluto come back and on their own node. Wow.
Yes.
What a thing. Well, yeah, one of my favorites to look at, but not because I like what it means, is the Mars-Saturn midpoint.
And why do you like to look at it?
Because it's intense and it's something that's physically manifest oftentimes, like a thing will be present when that midpoint is talking. So it's good to know about those things. All right, so back to something a little more gentle. If someone were going to be getting into astrology, what books would you put in their lap?
So first, some introductory books. So I would think of Vanessa Montgomery's Star Power. I like her a lot. She's an astrologer from Australia. And she wrote 3 books that are all Astro Power, Cosmic Power, and Solar Power, I think they're called. And I like it because she's very practical with the way she explains. This book that I chose, Star Power, right, is the one I chose.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, I think, her first book, and it's really focused mostly on natal chart. There is a little chapter on transits, but it's mostly focused on natal chart and how to work with a natal chart. And I like her because she goes through all of the signs, all of the houses, all of the planets, how to combine them. And it's very practical. And she has a post-colonial view of astrology, and she's a feminist. So I like that she sees astrology in a more postmodern, I don't know, what are we living now view, in this 2024 view. So I like her. I like her very much. I think she's creative, but also very practical. And yeah, I like her approach.
Very cool.
Then there's another book, which is maybe thicker, which is Carol Taylor's Astrology, The Wisdom of the Stars. So this is super complete. The design is also beautiful. And she goes also through all of the elements, all of the factors that are in a natal chart. And I like that she, in one section of the book, she explains like how to find specific information. So if you want to see relationships, you should look at the 7th house ruler, the Venus, this and that. If you want to see, I don't know, family life. So I like it that she's very, for a beginner, I think it's very clear, it's very structured on how to work with the chart. Then after that, I would say, okay, let's move to something a little bit deeper. So I would go to the development of the personality with Liz Greene. Maybe the word is not deeper because it's not like the other books are not deep, but maybe let's expand a little bit more the way we can work with this. And so, yeah, books by Liz Greene that they talk about the shadow. I'm a Jungian psychologist, so of course all of these things.
Yeah.
I think they give some kind of depth to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then let's bring in Sue Tompkins' aspects in astrology.
All right. Yeah.
We kicked her off
the island, but now she can come back in and be in the intro book. Yes. Awesome.
Because again, it's a very clear book on how to work with aspects. All of these books, I think that they need to I think especially at the beginning, it's important to be very specific about the way you're interpreting the chart. And yeah, and very grounded, I think, because it's very easy to start kind of making interpretations that don't really make sense. Like if somebody listens to this, doesn't really know what you're talking about. But at the same time, from my perspective, you want to keep an open approach because, of course, you want to talk about, let's say, an archetypical interpretation, something about a pattern and not so much about a narrative, more like a pattern than a narrative. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I also love the way that you had that openness when we were talking about your psychological client work around, like, if someone has an experience that means the color of orange relates to Pluto for them, then who is anyone to say, like, no, Pluto is only black? And it's like, yeah, I don't know if you've heard of this element called orpiment. Have you heard of this stone called orpiment?
No.
It's related to solar signification, but it's highly toxic. And so if you were to, like, lick orpiment, you would die. And I'm like, that's orange Pluto, if I were going to find an example from somewhere. So I love that idea of theirs being like a sort of pattern-based openness to letting your clients or patients or anybody else like engage with it and bring something of themselves to it while it's also happening in the sky.
In my opinion, as astrologers, we have no idea. We have no idea what it's like to live with another person's chart. We have no idea. And I think the more we know ourselves, the more we realize that there are other people in the world. And by definition, they are different than myself.
Wait, what? Whoa. Everybody listening here is just having a moment like, okay, cars are pulling over to the side. People are taking their headphones off. Like, what?
It can be a very traumatic experience to really realize this. And so when we interpret a chart, we are interpreting it from who we are, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's so obvious. I mean, it's so obvious, but I think sometimes we don't take it into account. So when I do an interpretation, I can never be sure of what I am. I mean, I'm talking about natal chart work. Maybe in other disciplines of astrology, maybe it's different. Like when you do horary, maybe you want to be a little bit more deterministic, and
the keys are either there or not.
Exactly. Yes. So, yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I find with students too, there's always that moment where they're sort of like, how am I going to know what to say? And it's like, we do our best to interpret the symbols we see, the patterns that we see. And there's still this kind of opacity. Like, I don't have clairvoyance. I don't see what I'm saying. It's just like, I know that when these symbols are coming forward, these are the things that are like the words that should be attached or can be attached to that. And then you see the response in someone and they're going, how did you know? And I'm like, I actually have no idea. I'm just doing my job. The chart says this. And so I'm a human being translating from the symbols on the page, and they have this whole explosion of attachment or reaction or sort of this kind of intense engagement with it. And you're kind of going like, I have no idea what's happening with that. I'm just doing my job. I don't know. Do you have that similar?
Totally, yes. But I tell them, usually when I start the session, I tell them, your experience is more important than my interpretation. I usually tell them this. So whatever I say that doesn't fit, don't swallow it. Just tell me, no, I don't feel this has happened in my life.
Yeah.
And then, of course, sometimes happens that months later, they come back and they say, look, I listened again to the audio and you were right. This is what happened. Sometimes it happens. But sometimes we might be wrong. Sometimes we might interpret something slightly. Sometimes I think with some people, if you don't use the exact word also that they would use to describe this, they also feel it's not applying. And sometimes we're wrong. And sometimes there are defenses. We don't know, right? But I think it's important to remember that when we're doing a chart, we're entering this kind of very intimate personal space of the other person. And we have no idea how it has manifested. We have no idea how many wounds and how many, but I think I have this kind of worn nose, like the red light, because I'm a psychologist maybe. So sometimes it's so clear when the defenses of the patients are rising up and they are kind of backing up. They're trying to contain what's coming up. And at least my experience is we never push it. We wait, we wait and we wait and we wait until the defense will will dissolve by itself, And I can say this from my own experience, in my own analysis, to have, maybe years later think, yeah, this is exactly what my therapist was saying, And she was patient. She didn't push me, even though she saw it so clearly. So I think it's important to respect that we also may see a lot of things in the chart that maybe the person is not ready to digest yet. So we need to work with the client. Because also you have the other case, right? You have the case in which you feel, probably this person has a lot of problems with this. And when you present it, they go like, well, actually, I struggled with that for 10 years. And now they're super aware of it. And, it's like, okay, well, you've done your work.
Yeah, exactly. I do like those moments where it's like, oh, you're past that homework now. Like you've, in other words, like burnt off the karma of that placement. So we don't need to worry as much, Okay, so how can people find you to maybe work with you?
My website is Liminal Cosmos. My Instagram is Liminal Cosmos. So those are the two best ways to work with me. If you want to have a session, astrology session, or if you want to do, we call it Jungian analysis with astrology. I don't know how to call it. I'm also open for that. And if you just want to learn with me, usually I teach at the Faculty of Astrological Studies. So you can also find me there. Yes.
Awesome. Well, it's so awesome to finally pick your brain about all of the lovely things that you have in there, and what a joy to spend time with you today. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Within Orb. To learn more about the Celestial Arts Education Library, or to become a member, visit our website at CAELi.institute. That's www.caeli.institute. If you enjoyed this episode, please help spread the word. Follow or subscribe to Within Orb in your podcatcher of choice, rate it 5 stars, or write us a happy review. This helps others find the show. We also want to give a big thanks to the indie band The E-Block for contributing their song Wake Up for our intro and outro music. You can find them at their website, eblockband.com. This is Jenn Zahrt, signing off for now. See you next time.